Hello and welcome to Crossroads. My name is Nicholas Tavitian. On this program we'll be talking about Armenia and Europe. As you know, the Parliament of Armenia has recently voted to start the process of joining the European Union. That is a big step, but what does it mean for Armenia? Is this a road to security and prosperity? Can the EU really help Armenia resolve its most pressing problems? Or is Armenia too far, too small, and maybe too late? We'll also try and see on this program what Europe Armenia actually wants and what Europe itself expects from Armenia. Whether you are following Armenian news closely or not, whether you duty follow European news or not, whether you're an EU lover or a Eurosceptic, pro-Western, pro-Russian, globalist, traditionalist, whether you think Armenia is in Europe or in Central Asia, and even if you still confuse Armenia with Albania or Romania, do join us to ask key players hard questions. Our discussions start here in Armenia. Later on, we'll move to the center of the EU to talk to decision makers there. And here in Armenia, I am speaking, as I said, to key players in the country to ask them what they expect of the European Union, what role they see Armenia playing in Europe, what its place might be in this vast community of states. And I will also ask them to share their concerns, their questions, and their hopes. That's our agenda today and in subsequent programs. Let me now welcome today's guest. He has quite a unique background and has played a very special role regarding Armenia-EU relations. Our guest today is Tigran Khzmalyan. Tigran, welcome to the program.
Thank you for invitation.
Tigran, you are chairman of the European Party of Armenia.
That's right.
And I normally do a bio of guests. I normally introduce guests in a little bit more detail, and I would be very happy to do that. But you have a very long and rich history, and we decided together that you would tell the audience yourself about your very long background in Armenian politics and also as a film director.
Thank you. I don't want to abuse the attention of the audience. It's not my biography that is long. It's intensivity of the period of time when we lived. Just for example, the first place when I was working as there was a little university newspaper, Yerevan, Yerevan State University, and I was working there for a couple of maybe 3 or 4 months as a corrector who was checking the texts. But what was important, that was the last newspaper which was using the Gutenberg press. Can you imagine? So the technology of the 15th century, and in the beginning of my career, I touched the technologies and the civilization which was 500 years before us. And now I'm carrying a cell phone in my pocket. So the intensivity of the changes which our generation somehow went through was incredible and maybe unprecedented. And it's not about technology only, of course, because every time technology brings a new set of minds, a new challenges and problems. And right now, what we are living altogether, it's something like what was called in the last century, but by futurologists, a culture shock, a future shock. It's a clash with the future, which is now, and the human race is not ready to face it. That's why we are going through crazy forms of resistance or of attempts to get along with these changes. My life, the generation to which I belong, went through 2 wars, earthquake, the collapse of Soviet Union, where we were born, the race of independent states and its fall, the victories and defeats, and long and continuous crisis, political.
So you're telling us that you have merely changed with the times. You've adapted to circumstances, and you've tried to tackle the challenges of your time, and that's why you've been a political analyst. You've worked with the UNDP. You've been you are a film director, and you're now a politician. You started very involved in the Karabakh movement. You were an advisor also to the chairman of the Karabakh Parliament, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
During the First War.
And I'm one of the authors of 907 Amendment to Freedom Support Act, which is still in power, the U.S. Congress Act. Yeah,
still in power, but never really rich background and CV, and a very interesting political trajectory as well that defies cliches. You started, as I said, in the Karabakh movement, but later on, and nowadays, you are one of the leaders of the pro-EU movement. Can you... how does that make sense? Can you explain how you evolved from one to the other? And what your attitude to Europe, to Russia, to, what your view of Armenia's place in its neighborhood, how all that makes sense?
You're posing huge questions, and I'm supposed to answer short, to make a long story short. Politically, I was born quite late. I was in my late 20s. It was 1988, February, the days when Sumgait pogroms began, and I realized for the first time in my life what does it mean to be Armenian. Before that, I was just an average Soviet teenager, then a young man. I was already married. I was finishing my PhD. I was a young teacher in the university. I had 2 kids already. No, one. The second, my daughter was born a year later. But I was born as Armenian the moment when I realized that someone is killed far away in remote city of Sumgait in Azerbaijan just because they are Armenians. And at that moment, I realized that I am Armenian too, because somebody is killed just because he or she, they are carrying the same blood, the same curse or whatever it is.
Right.
And this turned my life and the life of my generation upside down. That's how we became politically active. And of course, it was based on wounded national trauma, because for my generation that was a repeat, that was another genocide. That was a post-genocide trauma generation which faced a new genocide. And then we didn't know, but then we faced a recent attempt of genocide just a year and a half ago in Karabakh, which I called and coined a patricide. Just like Raphael Lemkin invented a word, genocide, to describe Armenian genocide of 1915, 1921.
Yes.
Then I suggested to Pashinyan to coin and to label what was going on in Artsakh, in Nagorno-Karabakh, a patricide, the last final stage of genocide, when not only people are deprived of their lives, but they are deprived of their identity, of the right of living on their lands, because a new kid, a new generation could be born, but we were deprived, we were we lost land and not just the territory.
How does all this take you to the European Union, though? To your in 2018 you founded the party that you're now leading. What's the connecting point between everything you've said and the EU?
That's the passage from nationalism to maybe something which could be called Eurocentral, Euro orientation, Euro integration. Armenia is Europe? Because Europe is not about geography. As for me, Europe is a system of values.
Right.
And Armenia, 2,000 years ago, was a part of the state which included Britain and Germany as a part of Roman Empire. Armenia was a part of Roman Empire. The moment when British Islands and German forests were part of the same empire. So we were Europe 2,000 years ago. We are not only geographically Europe. I hate the term in South Caucasus, which was invented 20 years ago to replace the Transcaucasus. I believe that we are part of Southeastern Europe, along with Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. This is political term, and we have to fight in order to make world to listen to us and to realize that this is not South Caucasus, which is geography, and it means nothing. It's Southeastern Europe.
Yes.
Because after all, what is the system of values that we share with Europeans? It's a Christianity. It's not about practicing the religion. It's about sharing the same values.
Yeah.
And Armenia is the first nation which adopted Christianity in 301, and which never changed its mind, which always, all our sacrifices and genocides were a price we were ready to pay for what? It's not about religion, it's about system of values, again and again, where human life and human freedom and identity and dignity is in the center of our little but so old Armenian world, Armenian civilization. And besides, we were part of European civilization along with Greece and Rome, along with Greek culture and European and Roman laws.
So moving towards Europe is actually going back to where you belong. There's a civilizational affiliation that guides the movement towards the EU.
Unlike many other countries or the center folds of European Union, which began as an economic union of France, Germany, as a union of steel and coal, as we remember in 1950. Many other countries joined European Union for political, economic, or other reasons. Armenia's path to Europe is a little bit unusual because it's a matter of security, a matter of identity and survival. Because right now we realized after 2020 and 2023, after catastrophe in Karabakh War, Second Karabakh War, and after genocidal exodus of Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh, we realized that in this very complicated region of the world, we don't have allies. For 200 years, people were forced to believe that Russia is our ally, Russia is defendant, Russia is axis of our being. But that was wrong from the very beginning. Russia always needed and still needs Armenia without Armenians. And it took a huge price. It took horrible victims and losses to make Armenians, the majority of Armenia, believe that we need absolutely different alliances and allies. That's how we succeeded. And who is our main supporter, so-called, in this? Mr. Putin. Because
he helped Armenia realize.
He helped Armenians to realize the bitter truth. When we were talking about this for decades, we were minority. Just 10 years ago, in 2015, when I raised European flag, EU flag, for the first time on Marshal Bagramian Avenue in the center of Yerevan during one of the rallies, I was attacked. It's recorded and and there are photos of that when 6 people at once attacked me, trying to take off the flag to tease it. But 10 years after this, in 2025, I raised this flag in National Assembly, and this flag is securing Armenian borders. So 10 years, it's historically it's a ridiculous short period of time, but it was an epoch in our life.
All right, you talk about the change of attitude, profound change of attitudes in Armenia over the last 10 years, and particularly
especially in the last 2-3 years.
Yes, that's right. But we over in Brussels, in the European Union, we also saw how the European Union was a very unreliable friend. We were there. I lobbied personally the European Union in 2017 and 2018 because we knew something was happening. Remember, this was after the 2016 war. We said by boycotting Karabakh, by refusing to engage in any way with the people in Karabakh, you're showing Azerbaijan that you will not move. I was saying this in 2017. You're showing Azerbaijan that you will do nothing if there is a war, if they do attack. And that's exactly what happened in 2020. That's exactly again what happened in 2023. I mean, even now there are no sanctions against Karabakh. In fact, just not so long ago, the EU Energy Commissioner was in Baku. What makes you think that the EU is so much more reliable than Russia?
Again, it's not just a matter of reliability. We just don't have alternatives. But frankly speaking, Europe is getting punishments for its attempts to play with dictators. And Putin is the best example.
Yes, but it's not learning its lesson.
Of course.
It's been criticized for its dependence on Russia, for its compliance with the Russian authoritarian regime. And instead it's doing that with Azerbaijan and with other countries now.
Nicola, I'm not in a position to criticize European Union just because I'm presenting Armenian politicum.
That's why
I'm responsible for Armenians. And tango takes two always.
Right.
And I would rather think and say what was done wrongly from our side. And it was Armenia's mistakes, both in 2016 and in 2018, when weak chances, which always were at the place, to move the course, to change the course towards West, were rejected. Last time it happened, now it sounds ridiculous, but it happened in 2018 when National Security Advisor of Donald Trump's first administration, Mr. John Bolton, arrived in Armenia in 2018. That was September, I believe. Mm-hmm. And he made big proposals to buy American weaponry, to become America's ally. And it was not the first time. Every 10 years, Armenia was getting such proposals, generous proposals. The first country which was visited by State Secretary Baker in 1992 was Armenia. In the beginning of 1992, just immediately after the Armenian flag was raised in the United Nations, Baker came here because they regarded Armenia as their natural allies.
Yes.
Because Americans remember that 100 years ago, United States and the people of the United States physically saved Armenians. The huge and the biggest in the world orphanage, which was located in city of Gyumri, where, by the way, Russian military base is located right now in the very same buildings. There was an orphanage of the Near East Relief, and up to 30,000 orphans were saved, were raised there, educated, and they became a core of Armenian nation in 1920s, 30s.
But it's very interesting that you're underlying these missed opportunities for Armenia to work in the West.
Levon Ter-Petrosyan was the first who rejected major Western presence here, and he preferred the Russians. He opened a Russian military base here, number 102. Then Kocharyan, who was just a Russian proxy. Then Serge Sargsyan. Every 5 or 10 years, one of our American state secretaries like Hillary Clinton during Serge Sargsyan, or Albert Gar during Robert Kocharyan, they were making proposals because they needed ally in this region. But Armenian governments, one after another, were preferring Russia. And that is a chain of not just mistakes, that was tragical misdeeds which brought us to the edge of abyss. And even now, look, the decision to begin the accession to European Union was made by National Assembly, not by their decision, not by their political will, but under the pressure of people's voting. 60,000 signatures were collected by our party and our allies.
Yes, I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm glad you're bringing up to I wanted to move to your initiative, which, I mean, you were one of the leaders of this initiative. And it was, it's quite a unique citizens' initiative. I mean, people have to know that under the Armenian constitution, if you have 50,000 signatures, the initiative is entitled to submitting a law to the national parliament.
Not exactly. Thing is that it's more complicated. Just a year ago, in March of 2024, 3 leaders of democratic oppositional parties visited Prime Minister, asking him to pass the bill about the beginning of the process of joining the EU. But he rejected, and he organized parliamentarian hearings where we were rejected too. The ruling party didn't want to do that. And then we used the legal chance to raise, to collect 50,000 votes, which allowed us to put this question to parliamentarian discussion. But then we took into consideration the fact that political situation in Europe, remember the hot summer of 2024, when one after one snap elections were taking place in Europe, when Belgium and Netherlands, when Austria and France, they were going right. I mean, politically right. And then the most important election of the year, Trump's return, it made local government to change their minds. And they were forced to accept our proposal because they realized that only the beginning of the process of joining European Union could save Armenia. We predicted that a year ago. They didn't want to. That's why we were forced to spend a lot of money and efforts and time. We lost a year because this.
Why did Europe's drift to the right affect the government's calculations? I didn't understand that.
They thought maybe that it will be business as usual, that they can keep balancing between Russia and Europe, because nobody demanded in Europe a strict drifting, and Russians were happy to keep Armenia weak and dependent.
Did they feel that doors were going to close in Europe, that right-wing governments were going to say no more enlargements, we don't want more candidates?
They felt that Europe is like a train which is moving already, and the doors were closing. And that was the last moment call when they just sent signal to Europe that we want to join you.
Right.
And the same happened to the United States. They signed a pact of mutual whatever strategic alliance or something like that with the United States just a week before Biden's
when he left as president.
Because the end of Biden's time. And this is very dangerous. And we were analyzing situation a year ago, and we were telling them that this is going to happen. But they didn't believe. And that was another political mistake which Armenian government was making.
With due respect, my impression, and I'm happy to be corrected, is that the government is still not in a hurry to start the accession process.
As we see,
they still are playing the balancing policy, and there's no plan for a referendum, even less a direct application to the European Union. Am I wrong?
No, you're right, unfortunately. And we had a bitter example of Georgia when some 10 years ago, Georgia was a beacon of democracy in the region during Saakashvili's reign. And then he was isolated, and then he was imprisoned. And we see that former free, loving, and democratic Georgia became just a province of Russia right now. And we understand how it happened, because Russians bribed Georgian elite. And that was happening last year when Armenia was smuggling Russian gold and diamonds. The government allowed Russians to sell the commodities which were under international embargo, yes. But from 60 to 100 tons of gold was sold via Armenia. And why Russians were doing so? They could find an easier shortcuts because they have a very long border with China themselves. But they did that for a reason. They wanted to put Armenian government in dependence, financial dependence, political dependence. That's what they did in Georgia, and that's why we are so intolerant toward these attempts of Armenian government to keep a balance, which is still which we still see. And in a month or so, Pashinyan promised to visit Russia on May 9, which is a shame. How could a leader of
May
country...
9th is, of course, the anniversary of the end of the Second World War, and a big...
It's not. It's just the end of the war in Europe, because there was Japan and etc., etc. Yes, but, standing next to executor and international criminal Vladimir Putin is a shame for a country which just we just announced that it's going to join European Union.
Right. But so what prospects are there? Did the law change anything? Or is there something going to happen now in practice in terms of relations with the EU?
It's just the beginning. It's just a word right now. It's empty paper. It's a blank paper which should be filled with certain deeds, with certain acts, like appointing a vice prime minister which would specifically work on Euro integration process. All the ministries, all the life in Armenia, economic life and cultural, healthcare and security, army and police, it should have been taken under the control of special order which would bring Armenia closer to European standards, to criterions. Without it, we have no chance to join Europe anyway.
Right. I'd like to speak briefly in concrete terms of what the EU, how it can help Armenia. What EU membership would do to Armenia, how it or the accession process, how that could in itself change Armenia.
We're speaking in the beginning of 2025,
yes,
when Europe is under renovation. It's rearming itself. It's looking for absolutely different ideology and security protocols. Europe is changing itself, and we want to be a part of this new Europe. We want to be a part of this new military political alliance. It's not just a trade union like it was before. Now it's something else. It's ideological union, and we want to be part of it because we feel ourselves part of this ideology, part of this system of values. Along with Ukraine, we are, especially our party, European Party, we regard Ukraine as a beacon of resistance. We are trying to be ally with Ukraine, not only in military terms, but we regard Ukraine as a future strategical partner for Armenian economy. The reconstruction of Ukraine would mean the new chances for Armenia as well.
Right.
We feel ourselves part of that world, not of the Middle East, not of post-Soviet stance. This is something which should be made right now by the governmental actions, not just by words and papers, which means nothing.
Yes, but I understand security, identity, the sort of general ideological context. But in terms of what, a country needs trade, they need an economy, they need institutional reforms.
Absolutely.
Would accession help Armenia from that point of view? Would it help Armenia's economy? Would it help security? We've talked about security. How else can accession help Armenia?
Well, Armenia's current economic model is just reflecting Russian colonial policy. Russia regarded Armenia as its colony, and it made Armenia a warehouse from which Russians were taking copper and molybdenum, energy, and the most important resource, the people. About 2 million Armenians are living right now in Russia, and some of them are part of Russian elite. For example, even the notorious people like Sergei Lavrov is ethnic Armenian. The Prime Minister Mishustin is half Armenian, unfortunately. And many ideologists like Margarita Simonian, the ill-famed Russia Today's head, she's Armenian as well. But they have nothing to do with Armenia itself,
right.
Because politically they are Russians. And when I'm saying about economic development, we still have the most important two resources. First of all, this is educated nation, and in Soviet Union it was like a Silicon Valley of Soviet Union. It's not my definition. The New York Times, Richard Bonner wrote an article in 1993.
Yes, I had the expression before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Besides, we have diaspora, which is 5 times bigger than Armenian population, and we have a youth which graduated from the best European and American universities. We're like a city-state. Only 3 million people are living here, and it's not very difficult to maintain a city. It's not a huge Canada or Russia with waste territory. It's a compact country with motivated population, with very mobile and industrious people, with good connections from United States and Canada to Australia and Singapore. And we just have to make a political decision to maintain a country, to make European renovation.
That's a very interesting insight. So you're saying basically the European model, viewed holistically, the model of development of the European Union is more adapted to Armenia than is the Russian model, which is more extractive or imperial. Russia was treating Armenia as a resource, whereas the EU has a more developed, more multi-dimensional model of development. Is
Absolutely.
that a fair way?
Because any economic model of any country reflects their system of values. Free market takes a free person, free will, and freedom of expression, freedom of confession, freedom of speech, right?
Right.
We don't have anything like that in Russia. Russia is a typical Nazi fascist state, and Armenians who live there, they are endangered. So of course it's a natural choice to be in with the democratic world, to be part of democratic world, and it makes a huge impact, positive impact on Armenian economy.
Right.
We believe that.
You mentioned the diaspora a little earlier on. As you said, Armenia has a vast diaspora compared to the size of the country's population. What role do you see for the diaspora, especially the diaspora in Europe, of course, in Armenia's connecting with the European Union or joining the European Union? What can Armenians in Europe do? What should they do? What is their role?
The main slogan of our liberation movement in late 80s and early 90s was reunion with Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. I believe that now in mid-20s, our main slogan should be a reunion of Armenia with diaspora. Armenia should be open for diaspora. Of course, diaspora is that as much divided as Armenia itself. It's not something whole. We understand that very well. Political parties and churches, many differences, mental differences. Russian diaspora and American diaspora, French diaspora and Middle East diaspora, they are different. But it makes us richer. And we have, a certain plan to maintain Armenia, to fix the country. We need 2,000 to 3,000 good top managers in absolutely every single part of economic, cultural, governmental field. And we often don't have managers or experts we need. That's why I regard diaspora as a huge potential for bringing them in, for salaries, we should give diaspora a chance to come back, to work here. And then we have to open Armenia, open it to Europe, to America, to the world. But of course diaspora is a bridge, it's not a milking cow. It's absolutely different thing. It's an opportunity.
And hopefully then a bridge between Armenia and Europe as well.
Absolutely. My last film, which I completed after war, when I came from the front, I made a film, The Stolen Century, about the period from 1920 to 2020. And if I'll ever make another documentary like that, it will be Lost and Found, a century lost and found. We have to find a lot of things. We have to find it. And we know where to look for this. And of course, diaspora will be a best bridge to bridge the gap between us and Europe, between us and the world. Because right now we're on the edge of abyss, of a huge gap. So we need the bridges right now, most of all.
We'll be going exploring the gaps together then, probably, because that's also Belgahay's mission.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Tigran, for this interview, for sharing your insights with us. We wish you good luck in your campaign.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and honor.